What's happening, Bengals fans? Inside the Jungle, coming at you live here at CincyJungle.com, episode 166. Hope everybody had a great weekend, except for Sunday. Sunday night was a little rough, as we kind of expected it could have gone after New England got thumped the week before. I'm sure there are a lot of Bengals fans very upset, wanting to talk about what happened in Foxborough. And we will do just that here on Inside the Jungle. Glad you could join us. I'm Nick Sibling, hanging out with Scott Bantel. We'll also be hearing from Anthony Cosenza, hopefully here in just a bit. We're waiting on him to get back from work since he is over on the left coast. But before we can do that, let's welcome in Scott Bantel. Scott, what's up, man?
Not much, just recovering from Sunday night. Upset that Mickey's not here to defend my boy Dalton with me.
Yeah, Mickey's not here, and for those of you wondering why he's not here, it is his 10th anniversary tonight, celebrating the big 1-0 for him and his wife. So congratulations. Send Mickey all your congratulatory tweets over at Who Dey Fans. It was a little disappointing to not have Mickey here to defend Andy Dalton and Jermaine Gresham, his two favorite Bengals of all time. I think he has a Gresh tattoo on his upper thigh, but that's just a rumor. But no, it was obviously a rough weekend, a poor game by we'll just say by all accounts. I thought, Andy Dalton didn't play. It wasn't the Andy Dalton of old where it looked like the stage was too big for him. I thought he handled it okay, but there was just from the get-go, New England wanted it more that night, Scott.
No doubt. I mean, you talked about the way Dalton's looked in previous primetime games. If you're looking for a silver lining, you could look at Dalton and say, he did not look overwhelmed on Sunday night. He did look like, he wasn't the Andy Dalton we've seen in those big games before. And although he didn't carry the team, he also didn't hurt the team one bit. He played, fairly well. I mean, he played mistake-free football. You can't ask for much more from him. You have liked to see him better on third downs, but overall, that was the one good thing I took out of that game.
There was one throw in particular I remember in the first half. He had Giovanni Bernard on a wheel route along the sideline that would have gone for a lot of yardage and possibly a touchdown that he overthrew. Outside of that, what I saw for the most part, I thought he did. We'll just use the adjective okay. We'll just use the adjective okay for Sunday night. Let's welcome in Anthony Cosenza over on the left coast with a brand new background. AC, how you doing, man?
Hey, yeah, different angle in the new room here, but apologize for being late, guys. Got tied up at the old day job, unfortunately, but kind of catching on to what you guys are talking about. Obviously, the debacle in New England, and wasn't pretty.
No, it wasn't pretty, but as Scott was saying, it wasn't. The same old story of Andy Dalton not playing well in mid games. You can't really put this one specifically on Andy Dalton, Anthony.
No, he did what they asked him to do. I think for the most part, take care of the football, hit some throws that you needed to hit. He spread the ball around to Sanu and Green, and a lot of guys didn't come through for him. There were some drops, there were some fumbles. The running game was okay with Giovanni Bernard, but Jeremy Hill was missing in action. I mean, he didn't even get hardly any touches in the game. And the defense let him down. So I kind of knew that this one wasn't going to be an easy game for the Bengals. I actually picked them to lose. And just all of the hatred that the Patriots got over the course of the week and everyone telling them that they weren't any good, I think really, really fueled their fire, and you could see it by the play on the field.
Yeah, it looked like and Scott and I were kind of discussing this off the air, that loss on Monday Night Football to the Chiefs just absolutely fueled them all week. So now they're spending a week preparing, getting focused, and figuring things out, whereas I think a win over the Chiefs may have glossed over some of their glaring weaknesses, whereas the absolute thumping they got changed the game. And you add to the fact that the Bengals were on a bye, and honestly, they looked like a team that hadn't played football for a week and a half. It looked like a team that, from a timing perspective, was not there. They couldn't get lined up correctly in the first half. They were late to the game, and I think the quickness and everything, missing that week of football really kind of threw them off. What are your thoughts on that, Anthony?
It's a good point, and I get the defense of the Bengals in that regard. I think we've talked a lot about Marvin Lewis and primetime stuff, and we don't need to rehash all of it. But you just kind of look at Bill Belichick's track record. I think he's 30-something and 4 after a loss, and you go into this game thinking this Patriots team is weaker than it has been in the past. They haven't played as sharp as they have in years past. The Bengals are starting to kind of get healthy. They're coming off a bye, long time to prepare for this game, and the Patriots are coming off the short week. And to me, that's a sign of coaching, that the Patriots were ready to play. Yes, they had momentum on their side and anger on their side. Yes, they were at home, but on a bye week, there's really not an excuse for your team to come out and play like that.
They just looked off. And you add up all the different factors to what happened, the week before with New England losing the way they did. You couple that with the Bengals being 3-0, haven't really been tested since the first week. You also keep in mind, coming off the bye, they just seemed off. And I don't know. I don't know how much a coach can get his guys up. I really don't know how much Marvin Lewis can do of that. If you can't get up for a game like New England on primetime football, Scott, I don't know what Marvin's supposed to do.
Yeah, I don't know, though. I agree with Anthony. I think that is coaching. You look at Marvin Lewis's track record, and Nick, you and I were talking about this before the game. He's got a track record of his teams playing poorly after the bye. I think they're now 4-7-1 after the bye. Yep. He has a poor track record on primetime in big games. And it's so familiar. It's that look of, they just seem surprised by the speed of the game. They seem surprised by the size of the game, and they just come out flat. We've seen it in the playoffs. We've seen it in other primetime games. We've seen it in other games after the bye week. Under Marvin Lewis, these teams, they just come out flat when you look, in the biggest games. And unfortunately, I think that is coaching. I don't know. And to your point, yeah, the players need to get up on their own, but I do think there's an element of the coach, getting them prepared, to come out and not be flat, come out with it, firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, to that point, Scott, the thing that concerns me, yes, the record is pretty poor. Coming off a bye. Yes, Marvin Lewis's record in primetime games is obviously, I think I calculated it at around a 25% winning percentage that he has in these types of games. The thing that concerns me, though, is the point differential in these games. The Bengals don't lose the game on a last-second field goal or maybe a one-possession game. More often than not, they're losing these games by multiple touchdowns, and that's very concerning. They just play very, very poorly in these big moments, and I don't know what it is that can cure that. Maybe it's the coaching, maybe it's personnel. There's been a lot of personnel changes over the years with Lewis, and the results have been the same. So that point differential thing is really what's concerning to me about it.
Well, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to say the surprising thing about that is, these past couple years in the playoffs and in these big games, the Bengals have had a good defense, and we've said all along that the defense would keep them in games because, they're so stout. It's the defense in these games that just doesn't show up, and he gets blown right off the ball, and that's just killer.
Yeah, the defense definitely did not show up, especially early in that game. The Patriots were able to move the ball at will, like we mentioned. I think the loss of Vontaze Burfict certainly didn't help their cause, but How hard is it to get lined up before a play and be ready at the snap of the ball? And they couldn't even do that in the first half against the New England Patriots. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been doing our best and worst of each game, although there's not a whole lot of good things that we can say about Sunday's loss to New England. Try and give me a best and worst, Scott.
I think the best was definitely Andy Dalton. That's been a huge concern of his, with Andy Dalton is how, he doesn't perform well under the bright lights. And I think the one thing we saw on Sunday night was, He didn't do anything to amaze, but he played solid. He played well enough to win. If not for Jermaine Gresham, he has 3 touchdown passes. He did get let down by his guys. Sanu had a couple drops that, were well placed balls. He missed the throw to Bernard, but you're not going to make every throw. Um, I don't think the game seemed too big for him. I thought Dalton's play was definitely the bright spot.
And your worst?
Oh, my boy Jermaine Gresham. The guy just, he just continues to let you down. I think he's got to be the most disappointing Bengal that I can remember. The guy's, he's got the skill, he's got the talent, and he just time and time again just lets you down.
Yeah, obviously the big drop certainly didn't help Gresham's cause. AC, how about you? Give us the best and worst.
Yeah, Dalton's definitely in there. I guess I'd throw Giovanni Bernard in there as well. Though, some of the runs that he gashed the Patriots defense on were when the Bengals were kind of playing in catch up. Maybe the Patriots defense backed off a little bit, but he did average close to 5 yards per carry for the first time this year. So I'd throw him in there with Dalton as well. Couple of bad points. I guess I'd have to go with special teams. Nick's favorite player, Brandon Tate, had a just a signature Brandon Tate moment, fumbling the ball on a kickoff there at a very, very terrible time. The Bengals kind of would slowly creep back in it, and then they'd fumble the ball away, and they kind of fell way behind again. So that Mike Nugent missed another field goal, albeit a very long one. So it's not a incredibly makeable kick, but that's kind of becoming a little bit of a trend this year, and that's going to be concerning, especially when the weather gets bad late in the season. So special teams kind of stuck out to me a little bit. And though he had a touchdown and was the leading receiver of the game, A.J. Green made a couple of mistakes, I thought. He kind of gave up on at least one deep throw that Dalton threw to him. It was actually intercepted but called back on a penalty. He didn't even really try to fight for that ball. There's a couple that he maybe could have tried for a couple of times, and then he also had a critical fumble as well. He did play well at certain points in the game, but was shut down by Revis for most of the game, and that was a guy that they really needed to kind of have a huge game to really take the Patriots team and their fans out of it, and he didn't show up all that much this Sunday.
Anthony totally just stole my thunder on my worst.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
It's all right. Best for me got to be the play of Dalton. It could have been a lot worse, as we've seen in the past. I thought he held his own and was let down by some of his guys. For me, it's the worst. And I'd like to bring up this topic, and kudos to Scott for bringing this up as well off the air. My worst has got to be A.J. Green. And in big games, he's also missing in action quite a bit. And I know it requires the quarterback to get him the football, but I'm just trying to think in a primetime, big-time game, when has A.J. Green really stepped up and made the play when it needed to be made? I could think of, 2? They were both kind of fluky plays in Baltimore. The Hail Mary in Baltimore, the touchdown pass earlier this year in Baltimore where he juggled it when we needed it. Other than that, in big games, he's nowhere to be found. And you got to give some credit, I guess, a little bit to the defense, but how many corners can keep Calvin Johnson in check? Not very many. So, and Scott brought up a great point off the air about A.J. Green. A.J. Green kind of flies under the radar and always skirts around some pretty heavy criticism that might be warranted. Scott, I'll let you take the reins on that.
Yeah, I don't want to come off as a Green hater, but it's a valid point with the criticisms that Andy Dalton gets and the criticisms that a guy like Jermaine Gresham gets, both warranted. The guy that escapes the criticism is A.J. Green, and he has come up almost as empty in big time games as Andy Dalton has. Even that the catches you referred to in Baltimore, the Hail Mary, it looked like he had given up on. The one catch he had this year, he ended up juggling it, which made it for a nice catch, but he shouldn't have juggled it. You look at the playoff game last year, he had a drop on a deep ball right in his hands that would have brought him back into the game. He had the fumble on Sunday night. Last year, Thursday night against the Dolphins, he ran a poor route that ended up costing them that game. And the first game of the year against the Bears, he dropped a pass that ended up costing him that game. So he just doesn't get the criticism. It's amazing the way the guy flies under the radar.
It's an interesting point, Scott. I kind of AJ Green almost encapsulates this Bengals team in a certain way. He shows up and he dominates teams that he should dominate, and he has big performances against maybe some of the lesser talented teams or teams that are maybe close to equally as talented as the Bengals, and does pretty well. But in these big moments and in these against these better teams, he does tend to have a tendency a little bit to disappear. Now, Chad Johnson did the same thing at times, and sometimes it's the receiver play, sometimes it's the quarterback play. Andy Dalton hasn't been the best in some of these big games against big-time opponents either. And Green has, to his credit, he has had a couple of big catches, but not necessarily the big games that you would like to see in some of these big primetime games, these big divisional matchups, at least not on a consistent basis. So it's a very interesting point. I think there are some criticisms there, but I don't know. You got to hope that he shows up in some of these other big games that are coming down the pipe.
There are times where he gets put out on an island out wide, which you can understand why. But when he's struggling and he and Dalton aren't able to get a rhythm going, I'd like to see Hugh Jackson and make some adjustments on the offensive side of the ball where maybe you put him in the slot, or maybe you give him a couple of carries via the reverse or something along those lines to kind of get him into the game. Give the defense some other looks. And I'm not so sure we saw a whole lot of that on Sunday night. Granted, he's going up against Darrelle Revis, who we all know is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. But it's not like Revis has been tearing things up of late.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me of how KC did, but they found ways to get the ball to receivers in Kansas City, and they don't have anyone close to Green's talent there.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And the playoff game, infamously, I think it was the 2012 playoff game against the Texans. They completely stopped using Green early in that game. They went elsewhere, and that's a guy you want to get involved early. And it's kind of a strange thing. They seem to, in these big games, instead of trying to get these quick hitting passes to him, maybe some screens, maybe some slants where he's pretty much assured to catch the ball and get some positive yardage, they try and chuck the ball deep and just try and have him come down with it, it seems like. And while that works every once in a while, that's not really a totally reliable offensive game plan. And it seems like they just kind of, as they go into these big games and they maybe fall behind a little bit or it's a close game, they try and chuck something up there to him to see if he can come down with a big play, and it doesn't really work that often. So I think you're right, Nick. They probably need to adjust the game plan a little bit in these big games to get him going, keep his focus in the game, and kind of get the confidence level of the entire offense up.
Now, again, I just want to kind of clear things up here. We're not pinning the loss or blame completely here on AJ Green by any stretch of the conversation here. What we're saying is he avoids all of the criticism. Andy Dalton normally takes to the brunt of it, and rightly so. He's the quarterback that comes with the territory. Jermaine Gresham obviously deflects a lot of attention as well. If Gresham doesn't drop that ball in the end zone, well, maybe the discussion is more about AJ Green. Obviously the play of Brandon Tate deflects a lot of that attention as well. All I'm saying is in big games, AJ Green tends to disappear quite easily, and it's unfortunate. We know he's been dealing with an injury, which obviously reoccurred today. Carter off the field with another toe injury. So we don't know what his status is for Sunday. But if he can't play Sunday, Anthony, what did the Bengals do from an offensive standpoint? You'd like to think that they turn around and hand the ball off a lot more.
Yeah, I had a thought today, especially with the shortage at wide receiver. Marvin Jones is a question mark at best right now. AJ Green now all of a sudden a question mark, and you've got Mohamed Sanu now looking at you as your number one guy, at least as of this moment. You have Sonsenbacher, you have Brandon Tate. These are guys that you kind of go, this is a little scary going in as a wide receiver. The thought I had was maybe you give Jeremy Hill the bulk of the carries and you'll start lining Giovanni Bernard up in the slot a little more often, and you use him as kind of your slot receiver, and you have Hill on the field at the same time. And you run the ball, you use play action, and you use quick hitters to Giovanni Bernard out of the slot while using, if you're missing Jones, if you're missing Green, you have another capable wide receiver who can make guys miss and catch the ball with pretty high percentage there in Giovanni Bernard. You get both of your talented running backs on the field at the same time. I think if the Bengals are going to be down those two wide receivers against the Panthers, I think they would be wise to utilize a game plan like that.
Scott, I miss Tyler Eifert.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised they didn't use Hill more, and it's funny. I've been taking a look here in the chat room, and it's a perfect microcosm of AJ Green in that he's getting support in the chat room for the mistakes he does make. I've seen some say that he's young, blah blah blah. Look, he's in his fourth season like Dalton. We criticize Dalton. We don't let these excuses fly for Dalton. I've seen excuses for his injuries. Again, the same thing. When the guy messes up, he needs to be criticized just like everyone else. I love AJ Green. He's a top 5 receiver, but he deserves the criticism. And if he is out this week, that's going to hurt the team. Hopefully they, I hope they go to the ground game a bit more with Jeremy Hill.
Yeah, and again, I want to reiterate, we're not blaming AJ Green here. All we're saying is he kind of seems to avoid the heavy criticism that others on this team get. Whether that's fair or unfair, I'm not sure. All I'm saying is that in big games, nobody's saying, oh, this is, why did AJ do this? Why did AJ do that? We always hear, oh, Dalton sucks. He's the worst. So that's all we're saying here on the program. But we'd love to hear your thoughts, though, Bengals fans. If you want to get in touch, we'll open up the phone lines now. 404-946-3397 is the number to call. Let's start things off at area code 859. Hi, who's this?
Hey, Nick. It's John from Kentucky.
Hey, John. How are you, man?
All right. I'm calm. After Brandon Tate fumbled the ball, I decided not to be upset at all. It's the same old story. So I turned off the TV and just went to bed and relaxed. And I was just let me turn my computer down here a little bit. It's a little bit loud. I've been talking about the offense a lot. I'll just talk about the defense, and this is just my opinion. In these big games, I'm going back to the Houston playoff games we saw a couple years back, and I'm really tired of watching the Bengals drop back in the pass coverage. And I really hated that Sunday night. They're getting burned alive, even if they drop back. You have got to bring the defense up to the line of scrimmage. And you have to let Mr. Brady know he is going to get nailed. Okay, now, maybe you get a few penalties. I'm not saying cheap shot him. Don't misunderstand. But you have got to lay him out a few times. If you don't, you're going to have a long night. And I just don't understand why Paul Guenther didn't do this. Remember the blitzes we saw in the first 3 games? Where were they? And we did do one blitz Sunday night, and when we did it, Brady flagged for intentional grounding. And I stood up and I said, yeah, there you go. You need to start blitzing him. But they didn't do it again that I saw, and I, for the life of me, could not understand why.
That's a good question, John. And I was noticing that myself. They didn't bring any blitzes the first 2 possessions, and finally when they did, it seemed to work. Anthony, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I noticed the same thing, John. In years past with Mike Zimmer, one of the things that the Bengals were able to do that they aren't doing as well this year, and we've talked about it a couple times, is being able to pressure the quarterback with just the front 4 and not needing to blitz these guys. So they get the pressure up front, and they still have all the coverage on the back end. With Geno Atkins still recovering, not looking like the same guy, yes, Michael Johnson isn't absolutely tearing it up for Tampa Bay, and he didn't have the greatest statistical season last year, but he was an effective player off the edge. With those 2 pieces gone, they're now forced to bring guys up from this, especially from the secondary, to blitz and create more pressure. What I think the plan was, and unfortunately it didn't work, they thought they could get pressure up front without blitzing as much, and they dropped as many defensive backs as possible back, especially to try and cover Rob Gronkowski, and that just did not work. The tight ends in that game for the Patriots combined for 185 yards, I believe, 2 touchdown catches. And then on top of that, the 2 running backs had over 200 yards rushing. The 2 main running backs on the night had Vereen and Ridley had over 200 yards on the ground. So, I think the key to it all is Geno Atkins has got to start getting his legs back under him. I hope he returns to the same form. And if he doesn't, they're going to need to get some pressure elsewhere. But they didn't do it on Sunday night, and you saw the results.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they kept dropping back, and I think their logic was, well, if we blitz, Brady will pick that up, and he'll burn us up in the secondary. Well, he was burning them up anyway. So go after him. That's just my philosophy. You bring everybody up, and you start nailing people. When you're getting embarrassed, you start putting bruises on people. That's what good teams do, like Pittsburgh, for instance. Cincinnati doesn't do that. They just cower like little kittens, and they lay back, and they just let the game get totally out of hand. And I'm sick of it, and so is everybody else. We want to see this changed. We will beat Carolina this weekend. Yeah, that'll happen. But, as far as primetime goes, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we've all been over the Marvin Lewis thing. We won't get into that. But beyond that, if you're not going to play with some testicles, I don't even know why the Bengals show up. I'll just come out and say it.
Oh, I love it, John. Hey, appreciate the call. Got to run, all right, Ben?
Care who day.
Who day? That's John from Kentucky. Bringing it. Dropping the little testicles on the show. So I think that might be the first time we've heard the word testicles here on Inside the Jungle. Let's go back to the Jungle line, though. Area code 513. Hi, who's this?
Yeah, this is Mike Hudson Sucks.
Hey, Mike. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you, brother?
Can you follow up that John from Kentucky testicles drop?
I'm going to try.
All right.
So I wrote on our Facebook thing about my whole idea. You drop the top 3 and the bottom 3 games from a quarterback's season. And then what you have left is what you can kind of expect. So in the middle 10 games last year, Andy Dalton had 12 touchdowns. So 1.2 a game, right? Whereas in this middle 10, Peyton Manning had 34, so 3.4 a game. Anyway, so for this last game, at the end of the year, do you think we'll look back and see this game as one of Andy Dalton's top 3, bottom 3, or middle 10? I think it's going to show up in the top 3. You look at his QB rating, it was 116. That's right about the on the cusp of what last year would have put him in the top, as opposed to the middle. What do you think?
Well, you also got to factor in how many of those yards and touchdowns were scored in garbage time. And I don't know if you can really count those stats as quality stats, but I see your point, Mike. If I had to make a vote, I would say middle 10.
Okay.
That's just my choice. Anthony's kind of shaking his head. Scott, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dalton's, somewhere in the middle. He's going to be 15 to 10. As far as top quarterbacks go, top 10, top 15.
Yeah, I don't know if the question was where Andy Dalton is going to end up in terms of a passer for the entire season, or where this specific game ranks for his, in terms of efficiency and performances of the 2014 season for him specifically. I will say that I think this was a decent game for him. I thought he was pretty efficient, and you have to also look at the stat line and figure in that there was a drop touchdown. There were a couple of other drops. There were some other fumbles that killed drives that could have also boosted his stats for this game specifically. But yeah, I still think he's going to hover around that probably 10 to 12 mark again in overall passing this season. If you're talking about landscape of the entire NFL.
I don't think he's comparing it to the other quarterbacks. He's just taking your 16-game schedule and you're lopping off to your best 3 games and your bottom 3 games, and then
it'll fall right in the middle, I think.
Yeah, I go with 10, Mike. That's my vote.
All right. I had one other comment. I keep on hearing that the Bengals, they don't show up in primetime games. And that bothers me a little bit just to hear that said, because it should be we don't show up when we play the best opponents. You look, we don't play Jacksonville Jaguars on, Sunday night, on Thursday night. That's when we play our best opponents. So that's not only the comment. I just want to see that language change. And I think most people get it, but I just want to see the language change. Anyway, that's all. Who knows?
All right, Mike. Thanks for calling.
Bye.
If you want to get in touch, the Jungle Line's open, 404-946-3397, or if you're outside the country and want to get in touch with us on Skype, you can. Inside the Jungle is the Skype account. Mike does bring up a good point. I mean, we talk about primetime games, but, the primetime games historically are against teams that have pretty good records or are okay. But I recall a primetime game a year ago where they played Miami, who wasn't great, and that was a game that should have been won had it not been for poor quarterback play and questionable coaching decisions by Marvin Lewis in that game as well. Look, we all know, we knew that this game was going to be a measuring stick. The Patriots are who we thought they were, to steal Dennis Green's line. They came back and they played like the Patriots we all know. I think that was their 40th consecutive home win against AFC opponents. They are the Patriots. They've been a dominant team for a decade. Bill Belichick is who he is for a reason. For us to expect that we could go in and lay the woodshed on them, I thought was a little naive. But it was a game that I think they showed a year ago they could have won. Had New England not gotten absolutely destroyed the week before, maybe this is a different first half for New England.
Completely agree, Nick, but at some point, if you're the Bengals and you are a team that's ranked number one in all these power rankings and everyone thinks you have one of the deepest rosters, at some point you got to step up and beat. If you are a good team, you got to beat good teams, and you got to beat them on national stages. And that's what bothers me about it, along with, like I said, they don't just lose, they lose in incredibly embarrassing fashion. And that's what really bothers me about how they play in these big moments.
Yeah, and to play devil's advocate on that, Mike brings up a valid point, but, the other teams that are beating them are, they're also playing a good Bengals team. Their good records on prime time are also against good teams. So, you look at other teams that have good records on prime time, they're also not beating up on cupcakes either. They're also playing tough teams. So, like Anthony said, at some point in time, if you want to be considered a top team in the league, or buck the trend, or get the monkey off your back, however you want to say it, they got to start beating good teams, and they got to start doing it, on national television, and especially not getting crushed on national television, which is generally what happens.
Well, let's hope our good boy Fatal Content in South Beach can make some sense of what happened on Sunday night. Fatal, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen? We had a game last Sunday night, man. I got amnesia, man.
Apparently the Bengals didn't know either.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Like you guys say, touching on many good points, man. It's I really can't wrap my mind around why these guys are just this stuff happens now. In this particular sense, I won't even make an excuse. I won't even say I'm usually a glass half full kind of guy, but this time it's just they've actually just met the stereotype that they've created. I mean, a lot of people, it's like I said, man, in fairness, though, if we had won this game, it's still about January, so, I mean, the fact that we got stomped doesn't feel any better, but, I mean, they took advantage of where we were weak, and we didn't take advantage of where they were weak. For one, Brandon Thompson and Vontaze Burfict being missing, they knew that, and they went right at it, and it doesn't help that Geno Atkins isn't Geno Atkins yet, so they exploited us there, and Vontaze Burfict was definitely just a big gap and that we were missing, and Lamar had been having a great season up until that point, and he just played terribly that game. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely noticeable. I mean, he wasn't the only one. I consistently saw Pecco being pushed back 5-6 yards, not getting off blocks. The defensive line not being able to get any pressure whatsoever against a Patriots line that was arguably one of the worst in the NFL. You didn't see Carlos Dunlap getting to the quarterback. You didn't see Geathers getting to the quarterback until they started bringing blitzes.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Leon Hall uncharacteristically was missing tackles. It's just crazy how they just started doing these things. I don't know if it's the prime time thing. I mean, I don't want to put too much light on that, but it just seems like I don't know, the Patriots were right up on the ball. We weren't even getting set on certain plays. Gresham with the drop. I mean, it was. I mean, I will give defense to my boy Andy Dalton, man. He played a great game. I mean, he missed one or two key throws, but he put the ball on Sanu. He fumbled it. I mean, he dropped it. Luckily, they didn't call it a fumble. He put the ball on Green. He fumbles it. He put the ball on Gresham. He drops a touchdown. It just was bad. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but during the whole game, I was tweeting, man, we need to give the ball to Jeremy Hill a lot more. And it seemed like Hugh was trying to prove a point or get them back, or he wasn't playing. He kind of seemed like the game didn't feel like it was a 14-point lead at some point, and it felt closer than that. He just stopped running the ball. I don't know if he's allergic to Jeremy Hill, or I don't know what's going on.
That is a good question. Not sure why Hill's not getting more carries. When he's in there, it seems like he does well. So I don't know. AC, you want to add something to that?
Well, I agree with him, and I'm sure Scott has some thoughts on it too. But just real quick, I mean, the interesting thing about Jeremy Hill getting only 2 carries in the game was after the first game of the season, when Jeremy Hill only had limited touches. Then Hugh Jackson promised not only Hill himself, but he said to the media that he was going to use him more and get him more carries. And this was the type of game that you use a back like that. You slow the tempo down. You keep the Patriots offense off the field, and you use that workhorse back to churn up some yards and push the pile back. I don't know why he wasn't used, especially when he made a proclamation that he was going to use him after he had limited touches that first week.
Yeah, I thought Fatal brought up some really good points, and I was really shocked that they didn't use Hill more. I thought with the Patriots defense, the way they looked against the Chiefs, I thought a big back like Hill was going to get used a lot more. And the other thing that Fatal brought up that I liked was that Brandon Thompson injury is a lot bigger than I think people realize. It leaves the Bengals really soft up the middle. Geno Atkins is not the Geno Atkins before the injury. That's to be expected. But the fact of the matter is that right now he's an average defensive tackle at best. And he's now starting next to Peko, who, Peko's not a starting defensive tackle anymore in this league. And, Devin Still is a great story. You like to see guys like that in the league. But Devin Still right now in his career is not a starting defensive tackle either. So you have 2 guys playing on a lot of snaps that, are not starting quality defensive tackles right now. And Brandon Thompson is. When Thompson's next to Atkins, that line is a lot better than when Peko or Still are next to Atkins, or especially when you have like Still and Peko in there at the same time. It leaves a very soft middle.
Hey, you know what, Fatal? They play again on Sunday, and they can get it out of their mind. On to Carolina, right?
On to Carolina. I just had a question for you guys. Since you guys kind of study on this situation more than I do, I just woke up not too long ago, but while I was sleeping, I saw that AJ Green got hurt. Is he gonna miss much time with that? I'll leave you guys with that, man. Who they,
Fatal? Appreciate the call. What we know is he was carted off. We don't know how long he will be out, if he will miss the game Sunday due to the lateness in the week. My guess is he will be maybe a game time decision. But anytime you're carted off, that's never a good thing. And so I don't know. I guess we will find out more. You'll have to keep it tuned into CincyJungle.com for more information and updates as we get them. Appreciate the call, Fatal. And all right, he's gone. Okay, then. Smooth. If you want to get in touch with us, 404-946-3397 is the number to call, and get in touch with us via Skype as well. Inside the Jungle is the Skype account. So on to Carolina. Let's get the bad taste of New England out of our mouths, and let's look ahead. Carolina coming off a big win over the Bears on Sunday, a comeback win. A Carolina team that has had its ups and downs already this year as well. Looked good to start the year, had a rough patch there where they looked awful, and got a nice come from behind win over the Bears this weekend. Now they come to town. It'll be the battle of the class of, 2010 quarterbacks, if my math is correct.
11.
Andy Dalton, was it 11? Okay.
11.
I wasn't a math major. Andy Dalton and Cam Newton. Cam Newton, let's just be honest, a guy with a lot of talent, but it sounds like not the complete developed package as far as the passing game goes, Anthony. We all know, he's been coming off a rib injury. He's not the same Cam Newton we've seen over the past couple of years. He's not running as much as he used to, but he's still a legit threat.
Absolutely. And Nick, I was a history major to avoid math, so I know the issues with not being a math guy, buddy. And the Bengals, along with some of the issues of covering tight ends at certain points with their defense, they also have trouble at times with mobile quarterbacks, especially ones that are as big as Cam Newton. I mean, they have problems bringing down a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, who is of similar size, definitely isn't the athlete that Newton is, but they have problems even with huge guys on the line like Carlos Dunlap. They have problems bringing him down on initial contact at times. So that could pose a problem. The wide receiver core is not that great for the Panthers, though Kelvin Benjamin has been making some plays for them. They've been kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team a little bit. They play pretty well one week. They get dominated against the Steelers, who are also a Jekyll and Hyde team. So I don't really know what to expect in this game. Their offensive line has lost a lot of personnel as well. That's hurt them. The running backs, Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams, have kind of been in and out of the lineup. So it's going to be interesting to see what they throw at the Bengals, especially on offense. They do have Kuechly on defense, who's kind of their Vontaze Burfict tackle machine and makes some plays. So he'll be a guy to watch. But I really hope that the Bengals employ the Patriots mindset this week against Carolina, and they get angry. They play physical. They play with some attitude. They got embarrassed on national TV, and I really hope that they go back home and take care of business in similar fashion that they did the first 3 weeks.
And guess what, Scott? The Panthers have a pretty good tight end in Greg Olsen, and we all know the Bengals story when it comes to opposing tight ends.
Yeah, I think I tweeted it on Sunday night. The Bengals haven't covered a tight end since 1988. It's amazing. Different coaches, different players. It's like they're unaware that this guy that stands on the end of the line of scrimmage is eligible. You would think with all of the tackle-eligible plays they ran with our boy, what was his name, Dennis Rowland, that they know this guy at the end of the line of scrimmage is allowed to catch balls. But yeah, they get killed by a tight end, so Greg Olsen's a big concern this weekend.
Big time. Let's go to the jungle line. Area code 505. Hi, who's this?
Hey, this is Bill from Gallup.
Hey, Bill. How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. I've enjoyed you guys' show for a long time. I wanted to call in and let you know I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I just wanted to share, I think I'm totally on board with Anthony's optimism for the coming game against Carolina. I love the fact that Cam and Andy were both drafted in the same draft and that Cam was drafted first. I kind of think back to that time when they were both playing against each other in the Pro Bowl. And if I remember correctly, the AFC whooped on the NFC while they were both in the game. I'd like to see a replay of that come Sunday.
That would be kind of nice.
I thought we really got embarrassed on Sunday night, and I also wanted to see if you guys shared the perception that Marvin just looked a little stiff on the sidelines,
It's never a good look for him. I love when they cut to the shots after a big play or a touchdown is scored. That look of, I want to say this cleanly, I'll just say, oh crap, that comes across his face. You know what I'm saying, Bill?
Totally, yeah, and I thought he looked kind of sick at some points. I was worried for him.
You're just waiting for the chunks to fly.
I mean, the whole thing, it just plays into, what are we? Are we 0-8 on Sunday night football?
I don't know the exact number, but it's not great.
Yeah. I want to get the whole thing behind me and just forget it and imagine that it was a bad dream. I like Fatal's comment. Was there a game on Sunday night?
Nope, that's right. And the good news is the game is at home in the jungle. Hopefully the jungle will be rocking, and it'll be nice and loud for those guys down there. But yeah, get that nasty taste out of our mouth and hopefully get back on the winning track.
Yeah, I think we can kick some butt on Sunday. Hey, nice talking to you guys.
Don't be a stranger, Bill. Appreciate the call.
All right.
That's Bill giving us a call on the jungle line tonight, 404-946-3397. Good to hear from some new listeners. That's pretty cool. What else do we need to discuss as far as the Panthers game goes? Is there anything I'm missing? You mentioned Luke Kuechly. Got to rep the GCL here on Inside the Jungle, St. X grad. Coming to town, playing his first game in front of the home crowd, and I've seen film this year where he's also struggling as well. I think they're missing some guys up front that are allowing, he's not getting off blocks like he has in the past, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't followed him a whole lot in his career, but I was reading an article recently. I think it was in ESPN, the magazine, that actually had him as one of the most overrated linebackers, and that's exactly kind of what they said was that, he's benefited from a great defensive line, and when the linemen get out to him, he's not that great at shedding blocks. So, without Hardy in there, and they have another defensive end that's out. I can't recall his name, but this isn't the Carolina defense this year is not the same defense as it was last year. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about Kuechly. I've always respected him as a player. He's a good college player and has obviously racked up a lot of tackles, but I do think some of those tackles have been after a big play and he chases down a ball carrier and records the tackle that way, and I think that kind of adds to that a little bit. Still a very good player, but I think there is a tiny bit of an overrated aspect with him, but seeing as how he basically is one of, if not their best defensive player at this point, they're going to need to really account for him and exploit some mismatches there if there are any.
Let's get into, we do this every week. Should we do bold predictions now? Unfortunately, I didn't get Mickey's bold predictions and score predictions for this week, but we know Mickey's a big-time Bengals fan. Let's deal with our bold predictions for Carolina.
Hey, ladies, quit your babbling, because now's the time in the show when all the boys pull out their cojones and make bold predictions.
Coming up in just a minute, we will announce the winner of the Cincy Jungle Touchdown Dance Contest put on by our good friend Cody at CincyJungle.com. We'll announce that winner here in just a bit. But before we do that, it's time for bold predictions. We'll start with you, Anthony Cosenza, since we missed you last week. Give us a bold prediction for Sunday.
I hadn't thought too hard about this, but I'm going to say that the Bengals really pound the rock this week. I'm going to say 40 carries between the two backs, over 200 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns between Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard.
Ooh, I like it. Run the rock, which is what they should have done a lot more of on Sunday. Scott, what about you?
I'm going very bold this week. I'm going to say that Brandon Tate returns a kickoff past the 20-yard line. Gives the Bengals great field position at maybe like the 22 or 23.
Probably.
I'm wondering if Nick's going to finish the trifecta with a Gresham prediction.
No. I'm going to give you a Nugent prediction. Just kidding.
Even better.
I've been racking my brain on this for the past couple minutes or so on what I wanted to do. Last week I predicted that they'd rush the ball for over 150 yards, and that both running backs would have 75 yards each. That didn't happen. So I will say, I think in this game, my bold prediction is that each running back, Hill and Bernard, each have 10 carries or more. That's my prediction. And I know that's not even bold, but I think they need to do that. I think they need to run the ball a lot more. I won't go into a yardage and touchdown guess, but I'll say I'll say that they each have 10 or more carries from our backfield.
That is bold because I think it's only happened once this year, if I'm not mistaken. That
And
both
guess
of
what?
them
They
have-
won. They
I know.
won when they did it. So it's a
know.
nice little winning formula, Hugh, if
Yeah.
you're listening, which you're not. That's my bold prediction. To love hearing and seeing some of your bold predictions here in the chat room. Feel free to send those along. Mike Hudson's so funny. He says Nugent with 50 receiving yards. That's probably not going to happen. But it would be funny if that did happen. Again, if you want to get in touch, we're here for a couple more minutes. 404-946-3397 is the number to call. Before we get out of here, we'll do our score predictions in a minute. But as I mentioned, Cody on our website, Cody Kai, I guess you can say that's his name, Cody Key, I don't know. Whatever his username is, Cincy Jungle, he was kind enough to donate 2 tickets, I believe it was 2 tickets, to this Sunday's game against the Panthers. All you had to do was submit your winning touchdown dance via video. And so here to announce the winner of the contest. I don't have a drum roll. I should have thought ahead. I didn't do a drum roll. Buddy Fleming, congratulations. You are the winner of the touchdown dance competition. So you will be heading to Cincinnati this weekend to see them take on the Panthers. So congratulations to Buddy Fleming on winning those 2 tickets. Pretty cool. Let's see. Should we read some of these other bold predictions? Ronnie Webb says Marvin Jones plays and has 125 yards and a touchdown. Wouldn't that be refreshing, guys? That would be a sight to see. Moss that would be. Oh, did we lose JC?
No, I'm here. I was wondering if you saw Amos's Geno with 3 sacks. That would be another good one to see this Sunday as well. Get him back in form.
Fatal says Fontes has 17 tackles, a sack, and a pick. Yeah, that might go well with his head injury. He also says Hill has 109 yards and a touchdown. Let's see here. Any other bold predictions? Frank Leonard says Aloka and Newman both get INTs. That's a good one. We could use that. Picking off Cam Newton, little pick 6 action. That'd be solid. I'm on board with that one. Score predictions, Anthony, for Sunday against the Panthers. I'd imagine you're going for a Bengals win.
I will go for a Bengals win on this one. I was pretty confident that they were not going to pull off the win last week. Didn't really predict that score, but
right.
I will say the Bengals win 27-17.
27-17, all right. Yeah, I'm looking at our preseason predictions. We all predicted that the Bengals would lose to New England, except for Mickey. He said they would win. But he also had them winning this game. And all 4 of us had them winning this game. Scott, how about you?
Yeah, I think they win this game. I have yet to pick against the Bengals. I'm not going to start now. I'm not going to go as big offensive as I have in the past. I think this is more a 24 to 20 game.
Chase Salee in the chat room says Newton equals overrated. David Buck with a bold prediction. Gresham has 80 yards and a touchdown. That is bold. And no miscues. I should have thrown that in there. No miscues. I don't know about that.
That's the big one, yeah.
Yeah. Bill Nichols says 1.5 sacks for Pecco. Where's the C? And Mike Hudson with another. They just keep coming in. 4 passes blocked by the Bengals D line. That would be spectacular. Fatal content. Even with injuries, we win 23-13. Ronnie Webb says 45-7 Bengals. Show why they are the number 2 team in the AFC and make a pact to never get embarrassed again.
I like Ronnie's prediction.
I do. Dave Buck says Bengals 30, Panthers 27. Hamas 35-17 Bengals, and Frank Leonard. Bengals win 20-14. It will be close. I'm going to go for a 21-13 Bengals win. They win with the goal line stand at the end in the Queen City. That's my score prediction for Sunday, 21-13. We'd love to hear from you, though. Send us your predictions, your thoughts, your feedback, InsideTheJungle@spnt.fm. TV. Just a reminder, each and every Wednesday night, right here at CincyJungle.com, we broadcast this show live, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, as I'm talking like the TV commercial announcement guy. So make sure you join us every Wednesday night right here at 8 o'clock, because we do something a lot of fun called
Shout-outs!
Didn't want to forget that. Give me a shout-out for this week's Scott Bantel before we head out of here.
Gonna shout out one of my Twitter followers, Nick Cohan. I hope I pronounced his name right. Nick's always pretty interactive on Twitter. Always has some good feedback, some good comments. His Twitter follow is at 2121. That's spelled out 21, a weird spelling, and the number 21.
All right, good shout-out, Scott. How about you, Anthony?
Got a couple. Michael Bowling favorited a tweet of mine about an article that was just in around the AFC North news update. So Michael Bowling, like the sport bowling. Brett Bradford, who is also, I believe, in the chat room, favorited a tweet of mine about the show tonight and also gave me a nice greeting. Amos did as well. And Nick, I hope you... I'll leave one to you. I want to shout this guy out, but I hope you end up doing it. He was a newbie tonight.
Ooh, you're throwing me off. Okay. Well, I'm going to give a shout-out to my lovely wife, Sarah. Last night was our 8th anniversary. We're not celebrating nearly as many anniversaries as Mickey has, but last night was our 8th anniversary, so I'm going to give a shout-out to my lovely wife, Sarah. Oh, I'm waiting for everybody to... Oh. But I'm also going to give a shout-out to a new listener, Bill. A little help from my friends. Kudos to him calling in. First-time caller. First time, long time. That's what I like to say in the radio biz. So I like hearing from new Bengals fans. And spread the word. If you like what we do here at Cincy Jungle and you like the show, spread the word. Tell your friends. Subscribe to the show. Last week was National Podcast Day. We celebrated that with great success. Hopefully you subscribe to the show. You automatically get the show downloaded to your mobile device. You won't miss a single minute of Inside the Jungle. The post-game show will return Sunday. So make sure you join me immediately following the game. I'll be taking calls, getting your initial feedback. We're the only live call-in show immediately following each and every Bengals game, at least almost every Bengals game. So if you want to get in touch, join me again, CincyJungle.com, Sunday following the game. And make sure you check out all our fantastic content, all our Bengals content this week. Final thoughts as we wrap up episode 166. Anthony Cosenza.
Well, on a non-football note, congratulations to you and your wife, Nick, and as well to Mickey and his wife for celebrating your anniversaries. That's very cool, and excited for both you guys to celebrate that. Sorry I missed last week. I kind of had a little bit of a brain, I won't use the word, but brain skip, I guess. Okay, brain fart. I had a little bit of a brain fart, and was thinking we were on Wednesday. But I'm glad you guys held down the fort. You did a great job. And like I said, I hope the Bengals end up employing the Patriots mindset of Sunday night and take out the revenge on the Panthers this week.
Yes, we missed you last week, AC, but we're glad to have you back this week. And I hope you're right. I hope they come out of the starting gates with their cleats on fire. Glad you're back this week, though, and appreciate the kind words. Scott Bantel, final thoughts as we wrap up episode 166.
Yeah, I hope to see the Bengals turn around and do what the Patriots did to them. I'd also like to say hi to Mickey. I'm sure on his anniversary he's sitting around eating a steak, drinking a nice bottle of Chianti, and listening to us
I'm sure.
with his wife. I'm sure that's what they're doing on their anniversary. So shout out and hello to Mickey. We missed you tonight.
We did. That's exactly what he's doing on his lovely Wednesday night. Hopefully we'll be joined by him next week. Get his thoughts on what's happened the last couple of weeks with the Bengals. I know it's been a while. Want to get his take on what happened against New England, and hopefully after a big win against the Panthers this Sunday. Again, can't thank you enough for downloading the show. Appreciate all the support. Make sure you leave reviews on iTunes. Download the show. Subscribe to the show. Also, Inside the Jungle is a listener-supported show. If you like what we do and you want to contribute and help out in any way you can, check us out on our Patreon campaign, patreon.com/Nick Suberling, or you can go to spnt.tv/Patreon. That'll send you there as well. Final thoughts as we wrap up. I can't thank you all enough. You all have been fantastic. Everybody who tunes in live on Wednesday night and for downloading the show. A big shout out to our Bengals fans across the pond. They had a nice little Who Day UK meetup this week. They are going to record. They were going to record it, and once we get the link, I will make sure to post it on Cincy Jungle so we can hear the take and thoughts of Bengals fans across the pond. Should be pretty cool. Again, I can't thank you enough for downloading the show. I must thank our associate producers as we get out of here: Andy Lanham, Larry Rolston, Mike Vardy, and Chris Setters for their support of Inside the Jungle. That'll do it for episode 166. It's in the can. Inside the Jungle is an SPNT production. For more information about our other podcasts, log on to spnt.tv and check out our amazing Bengals content over at cincyjungle.com. We'll see you Sunday for the post-game show. And until next Wednesday, special thanks to AC and Scott Mantell. Hoo day!
Hoo day!
Okay. The calls were a lot more tame than I thought.
I was expecting
I can't,
more anger.
I can't believe that John was able to contain himself. I mean, he was more fired up before the game than after.
Given what I've seen on the comment threads of articles this week, I was expecting Armageddon.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
Look, they can't win them all.
Right.
So,
exactly what I was going to say. Yep.
I guess what was disappointing is the way it was lost. Like, like out of the gate, like no effort. Effort may not be the right word. No, where was the intensity? Like, I didn't see the defensive line firing off the ball. You know, I just saw them getting knocked around.
They were incredibly tentative, and Marvin Lewis looked rattled and scared on the sideline, and that's what worries me. And you know, I still think this team is a playoff team, and you know can win some good games this year and be a good team. But that type of game just kind of worries me again. What's going to happen when a playoff game arrives? Are they going to do the same thing again? I mean, they hosted one when they were undefeated last year at home, and they got blown out.
They peed down their legs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. How can you expect otherwise with performances like that? That's I guess my point.
I mean, it's just the exact same thing every time under Marvin Lewis. It's the same look. You know, the team comes out flat. They look terrible. They get blown off the ball. And like you said, Marvin Lewis just stands on the sidelines. I mean, he looks like he's completely clueless about what is going on.
Yeah, and it's also a bummer because I follow some of the guys on social media and stuff, and Dunlap, especially on, I don't know if you guys have Instagram, but he's pretty entertaining on Instagram. And even when they had this time off, you know, it shows they got a little time to go back home or go be with family or whatever they did during the bye week. He's chilling on the beach back at home, and he's got he posted a picture. He's got his iPad in front of him watching film on Brady. And I thought, hey, that's a really cool deal. He had a day off. He didn't really need to do anything. He's on his own time, and he's still dedicated to football in one respect or another. And I thought maybe this game would be a little different. I didn't think they'd win, but I thought it might be a hard-fought, close game, and it just it was terrible.
Perfect storm.
Yeah.
After we saw what their offensive line looked like against Kansas City, I thought for sure that defensive line was just going to run roughshod over that offensive line, and to see them get pushed around the way they got pushed around was just, it was disappointing to say the least.
Yep.
Disappointing is a very good adjective.
Yeah, I think I'd seen coming into the game the Vereen and Ridley had 326 yards rushing, and they had like close to 220 in that one game.
Yep. So here's a question. What's the last primetime game that you can remember the Bengals winning? I'm looking back to Monday night last year. They beat the Steelers 20-10 at home, right?
Right.
Yeah. They didn't look
okay.
That game.
No. So what's the last time that the Bengals played a primetime game and won and looked outstanding or pretty good doing it? I can't. I mean, I'm going back 2012, they beat the Eagles on Thursday night. They were still
That's
really
what I was
sloppy.
gonna say.
They were still pretty sloppy in that game, if
Yeah.
you remember. I'm hard pressed to think of a game that it was like, wow, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. That game against the Eagles was the one I was going to point out.
But and it was a good game, but they still had their fair share of mistakes, and the Eagles were just terrible that year, right?
Yep, that was the last year of Andy Reid.
Yeah.
That was the game where Bryce Brown made all his money.
Yep.
It's like the Bryce Brown coming out party, I think.
Yep. I don't know. I just that's what worries me. It's just, and I don't know how that keeps happening.
I think the primetime game thing really is coaching. I mean, I just feel like that's overall preparation and getting the guys in the right mindset. And like I said, I just think that's coaching.
Well, yeah, they've had two different starting quarterbacks, right? They've had different starting wide receivers, different offensive line, different defensive. I'm talking throughout Lewis's career as a head coach. It's changed. All the personnel has changed over, but the head coach is not, and the results are still the same. That's where you go, well, I mean, what's the common denominator here?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, Nick. You're quiet. What are you thinking?
No, I'm just thinking. I just wish they would show up. That's the thing. I just that's frustrating.
Yeah.
Like
And-
you knew after the first two drives they were done. There was no way they were gonna.
Yep.
You know what
And then
kills me?
Green, the fumble by Green at the end of the first half was. I've never been so mad as a Bengals.
That was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, just go down. You don't need to be reaching out.
The Gresham one was my killer.
God, Gresham. I despise Gresham. You know the thing that pisses me off about the Green, and you know, I'll come off, you know, I'm sure on the show as being someone that hates Green, which isn't the truth, but it's amazing to me how poorly this guy has played in big games. And Anthony, you hit it on the nail on the head. He excels at torching guys that are far less talented than him, you know. But it's like when he's challenged, that's when you see him give up on. It's like when he runs into someone that pushes back on him, he just stops. And that's what happens when he plays good teams, is he just stops. And no matter what he does, there's no criticism that comes his way. In the chat room, guys were saying, well, his toe's injured, you know, he's young, it's only his fourth year. The same stuff that Dalton doesn't get the benefit of the doubt of. He's also fourth year. You know, one guy said, well, he plays good in every other game. It's just his bad games. That's exactly what the complaint about Dalton is.
Yep.
Sorry, that's
And
my
you would
soapbox.
No, that you would hope that another player or the coaches would then recognize maybe some of that and utilize someone else, or someone else would have the guts to stand up and be like, dude, I'm going to be this guy tonight. You know, as other guys are struggling, I'm going to be the guy. Give me the ball. And just doesn't seem to happen.
I wish, and I again, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I kind of wish he had a little TO in him.
Yeah.
Like competitive, not the douchebag TO, like the competitive drive, like want to be the best player on the field at all times TO.
No, you're right, Nick. I think there's a bit of fire that seems to be missing that you just like to see, you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
but that's damned if you do, damned if you don't, though, too. Because then if he goes out, why wasn't I getting the ball? Why, he comes out and says all that kind of stuff. Then you sit here and you go, oh, diva wide receiver. So it's kind of like,
Maybe not, I don't necessarily want him complaining about not getting the ball, but
yeah.
like I see him sitting on the bench and he's just stoic. I guess he's a lot more like Marvin Harrison, who just sits there and just lets his play do the talking.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I forgot to bring up on the show was, you know, at the very beginning of that game, I don't know if you guys thought the same, but when the Bengals won the toss and deferred the kick, generally I'm for deferring the kick. But given the situation they were in, where you have the Patriots coming off an absolute beatdown, they have a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback who you know is just chomping at the bit to get going. Do not let them get back in the game by giving him the ball first. Try to turn the crowd against him. Take the ball. Try to go right down on their crappy defense and score and get the boos out. Like I did not understand giving the ball to Tom Brady to let them, get some momentum going and get the fans back in it. Just
Great point. Great point. The thing that I would say to play devil's advocate is if the Bengals didn't, and I might be wrong when Brandon Tate fumbled. Was he third quarter or was he second quarter?
third.
I think it was after halftime
Okay.
because I didn't see it.
So I think they were looking at 20-3 or something like that when they got or 20-10, I think, when they got the ball back, and they had a few minutes left right before the AJ Green fumble, right? I think it was 20-10. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So then you sit here and you go, okay, well, how it worked out, if Green doesn't fumble the ball and New England obviously doesn't score from there, then you have, even if you kind of just punt the ball away in the half ends, you get the ball right back again, and then you have an opportunity to, after half, to make it a one-possession game. So if the Bengals didn't shoot themselves in the foot so many times, it would have ended up being an okay scenario. But I completely agree with you though, Scott. Like that's given their attitude and what had happened to them the entire week, you do not want to just say, here's the ball, do what you want with it first, and we'll try and respond. It's just that, especially on the road, you don't want to do that. Yeah,
and that's what I mean. Like, generally, I prefer deferring the kickoff for that exact reason. Just, I guess you could say, like, if they come out and they shut down Tom Brady, how quick is that crowd going to turn on them
if
they shut him down? But I would take a look at it and say, given how bad the Patriots looked, do you have a better chance of Tom Brady coming out and making a statement, or that crappy defense? And so I don't know. When they deferred the kickoff, I was just like, why? Like, try to keep this crowd against this team. Try to keep the snowball rolling downhill. But hell, I don't know if it mattered. They got killed.
And I guess Nick stepped away, it looked like. But it's the thing that killed me most, and it totally plays into the primetime deal, is they had one turnover in their first 3 games, and they had 3 times as many in one game in the national spotlight.
And it was just like every which way too. It was.
They almost had 4 if that pick counted. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I don't know. They seem to play very tight in those scenarios, and I think being an athlete, I've been an athlete and I've been a coach both, and sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes your team takes on the personality of your coach. And if your coach looks rattled, and if he seems unprepared, if he seems scared, or there's a track record against a specific team or a specific scenario, the team picks up on that. And I that's why I don't understand the people that say I don't buy into the Bengals in primetime deal. They just play good teams, or well, you're going to play a good team on prime. I think you said it, Scott, on the air. You're going to play a good team on prime time. That's the entire point. That's the entire point of scheduling the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they don't put blowouts on prime time.
Right. Yeah. Right. So and you can say it's maturity. You can say it's different personnel, but it's my thing with it is I didn't really I care if they lost, obviously. But I didn't necessarily care if they lost if it was, an anywhere from a 7 to 3 point loss or something like that. I would have been like, it's a tough game. Patriots were motivated. I get it. And I picked them to kind of lose this game anyway. It's just, I said it earlier, it's just the way that they lose these games is just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it is, it's not, I mean, I guess you really shouldn't care what. It's so frustrating to hear the reputation that they still have amongst other NFL fans, amongst national media, because they don't see them, on a weekly basis. All they see is these primetime games, and every time they suck. And I agree with you completely, man. They take on the personality of their head coach, and he looks uncomfortable and clueless on the sidelines. I mean, they pan to him, and he looks like he's gonna shit his pants.
Yeah, he looked probably one of the most rattled I've ever seen him look on Sunday night this last game. I mean, yeah. He looked confused. He looked like when they were scoring, he was like, "What do we do?" And the other thing, and Hugh Jackson has done a pretty good job of it since he's been here just for the limited amount of time, but halftime adjustments just don't seem to exist with this team. They create a game plan, and if they have to deviate from it, it just does not work. And that's it. The whole thing with Sunday night is they had the Bengals playing the type of football that they hadn't played through their first 3 games at all. The Bengals are playing pretty much almost always with a lead. They were able to pick and choose their plays on offense and tee off on defense, and they were not able to do any of that on Sunday. And you're right. I think it begins with that deferral of the kickoff. I actually didn't know they actually deferred the coin toss. I thought maybe Patriots got it and won it. I didn't really watch that part. But that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and the other thing that kills me with Lewis, kind of going to the taking on the personality of your coach, is like you take a look at like expectations. With the Patriots, when a guy fumbles, he doesn't go back to return kicks. And Brandon Tate and Nugent, in the press conference on Monday, Marvin Lewis made it a point to defend both of them. I mean, I thought it was. I don't think it was too far out there to say it's reasonable to think those guys can get cut on Monday because they both sucked this year. And he comes out and he defends Tate and says, "Look, he's doing exactly what we tell him to. He's doing a great job." And I looked at it. He took 6 balls out of the end zone on Sunday night, and 5 of those he didn't get back to the 20-yard line.
Yep.
If you don't have expectations of your players, if you don't tell them that, look, that's not acceptable, I mean, that's what you're going to keep getting.
Yep, that's a great point, and I want to hear your opinion on this. I'm a guy who, especially in football, baseball not necessarily because there's so many games, but in football there are so few games, and every game matters. And obviously you want to avoid injuries for the long run, but I am of the opinion that you play you play your best players in the most opportune situations. And you look at punt returns, and yes, Adam Jones is a pretty heavy contributor on defense. He's basically their number 2 to number 3 cornerback, however you want to look at it. He had more punt return yards on 1 return than Tate did, I think, on 4 or 5 returns. So and he gets
on the whole year.
Yeah, and he gets only 1 a game at most. And almost every time he touches the ball, it's either a big return or a big return with a penalty, and it gets called back, right? So yeah. I sit here and I go, well, why wouldn't you up that a little bit? Do you think Adam Jones, if he gets 2 punt returns, 3 punt returns a game, do you think that likelihood of him blowing out a knee or whatever is that high that you can't allow it would be like on offense, you say, well, I don't want AJ Green to do a double move route because he might tweak his knee on the cutback to make the double move. To me, you have to play your best players in situations that can put your team in position to win. And the Bengals are one of those teams that they're so afraid of losing a somewhat to very important player in certain situations that they don't use them at. To me, Adam Jones is a better punt returner than he is a cornerback. And it's not to say he's a bad cornerback. He's solid to pretty good, but he's an outstanding punt returner. So to me, you utilize that any way you can.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I feel like he should return every punt. You look at it. So what happens if they lose him? They have 2 first-round draft picks
Yep.
sitting behind him in Denard and Kirkpatrick. Like, you guys drafted these guys to be starters. So, you got Hall, Newman, Kirkpatrick, and Denard. You should be perfectly fine.
Yep.
I would have him return every. I just don't understand what purpose Brandon Tate serves on this team. He provides nothing on offense. He's not even an average kick returner. He just makes stupid plays and bringing it out. You can't tell me there's not another guy on the team that could either take a knee in the end zone or return the kick out to the 15. There's got to be 35 guys on the team that could do that.
Yeah, and there are multiple. There are probably guys that don't have a job right now that are college free agents or whatever that could do at least what he does. And there are times when Tate, last year I was a little pleasantly surprised with some of the stuff he did, but I mean, for the most part, he's just 25 yard line, 25-yard line, 15-yard line, 10-yard line, 25-yard line, fumble. It's I don't know how it goes back to your point. I don't know how that's acceptable and how say what you want about the Steelers. Maybe they're not as talented and they're they have some issues. But Mike Tomlin says there's certain issues when they lose. He comes out to the press and he says this kind of stuff is unacceptable. We're not going to accept it. We're going to get it right, and we're gonna make the corrections we make. And most of the time, guys like that and coaches like that stick to their word. They do it. And if a guy isn't performing, they sit there and they go, okay, well, you know what, you're going to take a seat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Marvin basically said that him and Simmons, from the sound of it, it's like Tate has the green light to return it whenever he wants. And, if he's a guy like Hester, I'm cool with that. But what has Brandon Tate ever shown that gives him the green light to take a ball 7, 8 yards deep every time whenever he wants? I
have no idea.
I mean,
that to me should be, that green light should be given to Adam Jones.
Oh yeah, I'd give it to him.
I mean that they should be like, anytime he's back there, you don't even call for a fair catch. You go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, like, would you rather have Tate on the team or that Ontario McCaleb?
Yeah.
I mean, even if he doesn't contribute on defense or offense, it's no different than Tate. He doesn't contribute anything on offense, so.
Well, yeah, and this is a guy, you look at the guys that the Bengals cut, and some of them were like, man, that sucks. This is a guy who's taking up a spot from Kobe Hamilton. This is a guy who, and Kobe Hamilton had not a great preseason, admittedly, but he does have some promise. He's got some size. He's got some straight line speed. That's a developmental guy that you could at least throw back there, see what happens for a year, and play it from there. But the competition factor at some of these spots kind of baffles me. The lack of it. I just don't understand it.
Which, speaking of that, what about your boy Hewitt, man? Why aren't they using that guy in the passing game more than? Fuck, Gresham doesn't provide anything. Why doesn't Hewitt get some passes?
I know. I don't know. I don't know. I think probably part of that has to do with Eifert being out. I think once Eifert's back, Gresham will probably be just relegated to blocking a catch here and there, and that's basically it. By
blocking, you mean holding, right?
Yes, holding. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know though. I don't have an answer to that. It's kind of funny because Hugh Jackson seems to be the guy that he likes, that versatility out of that fullback H-back position, a guy that can block and maybe slide out and catch a little bit, and they haven't used him at all. But I mean, they have multiple wide receivers, they have a couple of tight ends, and they have backs that can catch. So maybe he's just kind of an afterthought. But I don't know, man. That's a good question.
Yeah, you look at, I mean, how far has Gresham fallen? You got Marvin Jones out, Eifert out, and the guy barely gets any passes thrown his way. And then when he does, he had 2 big drops on Sunday night. And every time, I was talking to Nick about that, every time he does that stupid Jermaine Gresham look of like, oh my God, what happened? Like, like looks at his hands and like he just. I hate Gresham.
Yeah, he. You know what? He had some issues all the way back as a rookie. He'd have those wow moments in the issues where you go, God, man, that's just a terrible play right there.
Yeah.
But he was pretty steady, at least statistically. This year, he looks completely unconfident. He looks completely rattled. I mean, I don't know if it's just he's completely unhappy where he's at and where his role is now. I don't know, but he does not look, even though he was a roller coaster in years before, he does not even look anywhere near the same guy that he did before, and that's not good because Eifert. If Eifert was in, I wouldn't really care, but seeing as how Eifert is out, that's a guy they're like, dude, you need to step up, and he's not doing it.
Yeah, I think it's between the ears with him, and I've heard Lapham say before that he's like the type of guy that, when he drops a ball, he like can't get over it, and I think he hears the fans' criticism, and he came out and said he was embracing the villain role, which I think the fans have gotten to him. He's so bad this year.
It's sad, and you can't. If you're going to be a professional athlete, you can't let that happen. You just.
And to think Gruden playing that one playoff game was Gresham.
Oof. Terrible.
Yeah.
All right, bud. I gotta go. I gotta pee like a racehorse, admittedly. But
all right, man. Well,
good talking.
I gotta hit it as well. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See you, buddy.
See you, man. Bye.
See you guys in the chat room. Thanks for listening.